Hello and welcome to the CYF course. Today we continue on our topic of single parents families. In most situations, a family becomes single parent due to divorce or separation. This can also be the result of the death of one of the spouses. In more than 90% of cases, the mother assumes the primary parenting role. She finds herself having to carry the entire family load in addition to her own life. No task requires more courage than that of parenting alone. It is not just a matter of responsibility. Already challenging tasks become even more difficult when you take a heavy emotional baggage with you. This emotional baggage is often so overwhelming that it prevents moms and dads from being able to parent as they would like to. Their resources have often already been consumed by struggles of the past, and they don't have much energy left to invest in their children. Psalm 68, verse 5 and 6 says, "Father to the fatherless, defender of widows, this is God, whose dwelling is holy. God places the lonely in families. He sets the prisoners free and gives them joy, but he makes the rebellious live in a sun-scorched land." It is because of this verse that we call these families families with a promise. A father for the fatherless, a defender to the widows. This is God. This is our God. God is on your side. And this is important that we embrace this heart for these families. Divorce was never part of God's original plan. The victims especially are on his heart, and he makes himself very close to them. Single mothers are like widows in today's world. They are abandoned, and children who lost their father are like orphans. The image of God reflected in the married couple is torn apart for them. We believe that united parents who love each other and know how to pray together for their family are like two sides of a roof. During a divorce, they split and the rain can fall inside the house. The divine protection that was placed over their heads is pierced. This psalm gives a wonderful promise. The rebellious live in a sun-scorched land. Unlike the rebellious, God has a future for the family of those who turn to him and trust him in their misfortune. We see this in the Bible through the story of a single mother. Her name is Hagar. Hagar was the Egyptian servant of Sarai, Abram's wife. As she could not have a child despite the divine promise, Sarai suggested her husband to sleep with Hagar and have a child through her. Abram went to Hagar, who found herself pregnant. Hagar then began to look down on her mistress Sarai with contempt, for it was a matter of glory and honor to be expecting a child. Sarai said to Abram, "This is all your fault. I put my servant into your arms, but now that she is pregnant, she treats me with contempt. The Lord will show who is wrong, you or me." Abram replied, "Look, she is your servant, so deal with her as you see fit." Then Sarai treated Hagar so harshly that she finally ran away. The angel of the Lord found Hagar beside a spring of water in the wilderness, along the road to Shur. The angel said to her, "Hagar, Sarai's servant, where have you come from, and where are you going?" "I'm running away from my mistress Sarai," she replied. The angel of the Lord said to her, "Return to your mistress and submit to her authority." Then he added, "I will give you more descendants than you can count." And the angel also said, "You are now pregnant and will give birth to a son. You are to name him Ishmael, which means God's bears. For the Lord has heard your cry of distress. This son of yours will be a wild man, as untamed as a wild donkey. He will raise his fist against anyone, and everyone will be against him. Yes, he will live in open hostility against all his relatives." Thereafter, Hagar used another name to refer to the Lord who has spoken to her. She said, "You are the God who sees me." She also said, "Have I truly seen the one who sees me?" So that well was named Beer Lahai Roi, which means well of the living one who sees me. It can still be found between Kadesh and Bered. So Hagar gave Abram a son, and Abram named him Ishmael. Abram was 86 years old when Ishmael was born. How many women are in Hagar's situation today? She couldn't compete with the beautiful Sarai, and Abram saw her only as a surrogate mother, as an intermediary to have a child. Abused by her mistress, she ran away into the desert. God is moved by her situation and came to meet her. Hagar didn't need even to pray. God came. In verse 8, the angel of the Lord spoke, "Where have you come from and where are you going?" The Lord gave her the opportunity to speak, to express herself, to tell about her suffering. He listens to her. The question, "Where have you come from?" gave her the opportunity to talk about her past. The question, "Where are you going?" gave her the opportunity to think about her future. "I'm running away," Hagar replies. Likewise, some people spend their lives running away from situations. But running away is not and never has been a future. The Lord gave her the following steps to take, even if they were not easy for her. He also gave her a promise concerning her descendants. "Follow me, do what I show you, and you will have a future, and your children will have a future." And this is a beautiful example for many single mothers today. Hagar's situation does not represent God's ideal for the family. As a result of Sarai's idea of helping the Lord to bring the child of the promise, she finds herself in a very uncomfortable situation. This text shows us that God is still present alongside her, leading her in those difficult circumstances and giving her promises for her child. Two things deeply touched Hagar. She was seen and she was understood. She called the Lord El Roi, the God who sees me. The term "who sees" also means "who understands." When we say "I see," we really mean "I understand." Single parents, don't feel overwhelmed. There is a God who sees you and who understands you. He doesn't judge you. He doesn't condemn you. He doesn't add a burden on your shoulders. He stands at your side and he leads you. He has a future for you and for your children. Come close to him, near the water source, as in the text above, and let him speak to your heart. A few years later, Isaac was born. He was the son of the promise. Abram became Abraham. Sarai became Sarah. Ishmael was already a teenager at that time, and Abraham loved him very much. But as Ishmael mocked Isaac, Sarai asked her husband to get rid of her servant and her son. This upset Abraham very much, because Ishmael was his son. But God told Abraham, "Do not be upset over the boy and your servant. Do whatever Sarah tells you. For Isaac is the son through whom your descendants will be counted. But it will also make a nation of the descendants of Hagar's son, because he is your son too." So Abraham got up early the next morning, prepared food and a container of water, and strapped them on Hagar's shoulders. Then he sent her away with their son, and she wandered aimlessly in the wilderness of Beersheba. When the water was gone, she put the boy in the shade of a bush. Then she went and sat down by herself about 100 yards away. "I don't want to watch the boy die," she said, as she burst into tears. But God heard the boy crying, and the angel of God called to Hagar from heaven, "Hagar, what's wrong? Do not be afraid. God has heard the boy crying as he lies there. Go to him and comfort him, for I will make a great nation from his descendants." Then God opened Hagar's eyes, and she saw a well full of water. She quickly filled her water container and gave the boy a drink. And God was with the boy as he grew up in the wilderness. He became a skillful archer, and he settled in the wilderness of Paran. His mother arranged for him to marry a woman from the land of Egypt. How many mothers end up like Hagar, with their children on their shoulders, wandering in the desert? This mother, exhausted at the end of her strength, courage and resources, no more water in the wineskin. She abandoned her son under a shrub. Then she went to sit apart so as not to see him die, and cried. The child, on the other hand, screamed and cried as well. It is interesting to note that if God heard the cry of the child, he came to speak to the mother. Sometimes it is the prayers of our children that wake the parents up. Many single mothers find themselves locked in a spirit of discouragement, no longer seeing solutions to their situation. They give up in a spirit of resignation. But God sees, He hears, and He comes to open their eyes. By speaking to Hagar, God acts in the following areas. First, He reassures her. We need to trust in God's promises, not only when all is well, but also in these times where everything seems hopeless. As Psalm 37 verse 25 says, "Once I was young, and now I am old, yet I have never seen the godly abandoned or their children begging for bread." Second, God encourages and relieves her. Third, He reminds her of her son's destiny. Fourth, He opens her eyes to a first solution. Hagar then sees a well, can go and fill her wineskin and give her son something to drink. As in the story of Hagar, God wants to open the eyes of the parents and of a whole generation of adults to the cries of the children and the solution that He has prepared. He wants to open up our eyes so we see once again their calling and their destiny. He wants to reassure us. He wants to strengthen us. He wants to lift us up. Even in the worst environment, He wants to allow our children to grow up under His protection and enter into their destiny. To do this, we must first get out of this state of discouragement that blinds us. You know, the early church had a special ministry to widows. Food was distributed daily. Those who had difficulties and did not have an extended family to help them were supported financially. We have more and more single parents families in our churches. And these single mothers are often left to fend for themselves. They are our widows for today. And we have to take care of them and their children. We remember what James said. Pure and genuine religion in the sight of God the Father means caring for the orphans and widows in their distress. According to statistics, the situation is unfortunately not set to improve. There are soon as many divorces inside the church as outside. The extended family should be, if possible, the first resource for these modern-day widows. According to 1 Timothy 5 verse 16, if a woman who is a believer has relatives who are widows, she must take care of them and not put the responsibility on the church. Then the church can care for the widows who are truly alone. The family can help materially, morally, spiritually, if it is a Christian family, by looking after the children on certain evenings or weekends to give the single parents some free time, by helping practically when needed, even by helping financially. The church can support in different ways. Gary Richmond points out some practical help that his church has put in place to support these single parents. Meeting times for single parents so that they can share with each other, pray for each other, and receive advice and support from stable and experienced people in the church. Post-divorce restoration programs for parents and children. Seeing a high failure rate in remarriages, they have set up a preparation course for those who wish to remarry. And coming from a divorced family himself, Gary was hired specifically as a pastor for single-parent families. His church now reaches over 700 people every month from all communities, blessing the entire region. An additional possibility in a church could be to integrate these families into a family home group. Children from single-parent families would then have the opportunity to draw on the example of other men or other women, depending on the gender missing in their families. We could also add practical ideas and create a solidarity between families. Not so long ago, we could always count on the extended family, on grandparents, on teachers, even on clergymen when a problem arose with our children. Today, with the breakup of the nuclear family and the disappearance of old forms of solidarity, parents or the parent find themselves alone. Single parents family in particular are in great need of support. Those in our churches could be adopted by other family and an inter-family solidarity would develop. The same can be said for single people. While some have received the gift of celibacy, this is not the case for all. Some are single as a result of bereavement or divorce, or never married for all kinds of reasons. The Bible is clear. It is not good for man to be alone. And God places the lonely in families. Too often, when there are difficult situations in our communities, we say, oh, the church should do that, or the church should do this, or why doesn't the church do that? We are quick to forget that the church is us. The New Testament's model of the family church encourages ministering to one another, not waiting for professional leaders or specialists to do everything. Let's encourage this partnership in our communities. Let's integrate single mothers and single people into families. Concretely, this can mean taking the children of a single mom home for a weekend, one meal a week, helping them with their homework after school while the mother is still at work, even taking them on holiday with you, inviting a single person to eat regularly in your home. In our family, we have adopted a single person who comes to our house several times a week. She needs to talk, to be listened to, she needs to be valued, encouraged, and on her part, she helps us and blesses us enormously in other areas, such as babysitting and helping with repairs, moving house, etc. We can collect clothes who have become too small for our children. We can set up a shop in the church where needy families can come and help themselves. We can offer mentoring, especially from father figures, as Paul seems to have done with Timothy. We can offer Saturday mornings when people from the church make themselves available for maintenance work, repairs in the apartments of single mother families. The possibilities are endless. But I want to encourage you. The church for this family may be their first family. I remember speaking in a home church south of France, and I spoke about the vision for the family, and people were excited, but at the end one lady was crying. And she came to me and she said, you know, you said our family should be our first church. It's not the case for me. My husband is not a Christian. It's the church that is my first family. And this is another situation that we will speak in the next session. Now let's move to some questions. And I'd like to encourage you to get by twos and share around this question, process them together, and pray for the people that you see around you that are in this situation, and see how could you be part of the solution and the support that we need to build for these families. May the Lord bless you.